All right, well, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for our Roadshow series. My name is Heidi Hendrickson. I'm one of the co-founders at Astro, the Association for Short-Term Rental Homeowners, and super excited today to be joined by a couple of very wonderful industry experts. We have Melanie Brown joining us from Key Data, and we also have Lauren Allen joining us from Vacasa Real Estate. So really looking forward to everything they have to share today. Our agenda today is going to be pretty brief. We've got 30 minutes to learn quickly what Astro is for those of you joining us for the first time. Then we're going to do a deep dive into the state of the Gulf Coast and Orange Beach areas of Alabama, thanks to Key Data, followed by some real estate insight by Vacasa and Lauren. So looking forward to all of that information. And then also we do have a little bit about local resources, permitting processes, and for those of you new to short-term rentals in the area, where to find all those great resources. Finally, we'll wrap up with some Q&A at the end. And again, this is the 30-minute session, so let's jump right in. So Astro is, again, Association for Short-Term Rental Homeowners. And just a quick background of who we are, why we created Astro. We found that the industry was very fragmented, and our goal was to provide an unbiased, safe, legal, profitable, and successful resource for short-term rental homeowners, as well as for their guests and for the vendors in the industry. So our ultimate goal is to be that connection point between all of those various different outlets. In doing our research, we found that roughly 60–70% of the industry is self-managing short-term rental hosts on a global scale. And they really didn't have a resource to help guide them through best practices, education, and of course, connection to other hosts. So in 2020, we launched very early on with a team of industry veterans, and we continue to grow to this day. We have a lot of different platforms that we work our engagement through, from our website, astro.org, with the business directory of industry vendors. We've also got our membership community, which is free to join. We've got networking, regular daily posts. That's where all our educational content is accessed. We've also got our social media outlets. So everything from our YouTube channel to Facebook and Instagram, all of our video content is uploaded to watch later. Followed up by, we do have email newsletters on a monthly basis. So industry highlights, especially a lot of advocacy news, what's happening around the industry. We do also work with a lot of strategic partnerships like the SDAA out of the United Kingdom, EHHA out of the EU, Penn State, and then we do work operatively with local alliances and organizations on advocacy efforts. And like you're attending today, we do a lot of webinars and events to help share best practices in the industry. We also do a lot of education. So we have 6 courses each year that we focus on, from tech toolbox to marketing strategies, safety and maintenance. Revenue management was just launched, I believe, yesterday. So a lot of great opportunity to beef up your education on the industry. And then finally, we do our roadshows on a monthly basis, going around the US, looking at different markets and doing a deep dive on what's happening in those areas. So as far as our community, I mentioned we do have a free homeowner host tier that you can join. Everything once you're in there is organized by topics of conversation. You can connect with other members in different geographies or regions. We do daily articles and posts by all of our partners and sponsors. We have all our e-learning courses accessed in there, as well as our upcoming events. So real easy to get in there once you go to astro.org, or you can just go directly members.astro.org. So with that quick overview, I want to again introduce Melanie Brown from Key Data. She's going to go into some fantastic metrics on Orange Beach and Gulf Shores.
Thank you, Heidi. So Key Data provides data and analytics about what's happening in the short-term rental industry. So excited to be here to share some of those insights with you all today. So we work directly with professional property managers. We'll shortly be expanded to host as well to make sure we get the full picture. So we plug directly into their reservation systems to get real-time and forward-looking data. We also scrape Airbnb and VRBO to see what's happening and the rental by owner and overall market as well. So the data I'm sharing today is from those direct integrations with the professional management companies. Okay, so I think it's really helpful to look at supply. That part of the industry has changed so much in the last last couple of years at this point. March of 2020 was really this low point in supply in most markets. So Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, we counted about 3,900 vacation rental units active at that point. But by May of this year, that's really rebounded, and we're back to about 9,700 properties on Airbnb and VRBO and deduplicated between those sites in the Gulf Shores and Orange Beach market. So supply has really increased. Obviously, if demand doesn't keep up, that can lead to some lower occupancy rates, more competition in your market. In the Gulf Shores and Orange Beach markets, most vacation rentals are condos. The vast majority runner up there is houses, so those single family homes. And then most units are 2 or 3 bedrooms with 1 bedroom properties close behind. So kind of your classic beach market with a lot of big condo buildings with just a handful of bedrooms. So next slide, there we go. So we're looking at the adjusted paid occupancy rate, which is the number of guest nights out of nights available to be rented. So we take out owner and host nights. The orange line is this year as of just a couple of days ago when I pulled the data. So it's past, it should be like June 22nd, not May 22nd, all in all of these. I promise the data is more recent. So everything to the left of that dotted line has already happened. Everything to the right is data on the books. So obviously reservations will continue coming in and shift the July, August, September, October numbers upward as we move on. This is kind of what we're seeing in most markets where occupancy started off the year a little higher than it was in 2021 and has since dipped back below last year's occupancy rates. So still really high, especially in those June and July peak months, not quite as high as it was last year. However, in most markets, we're still seeing occupancy and demand higher than it was pre-pandemic in 2019. Average daily rates, however, the average guest rent paid per guest night. Again, we're still looking at that pacing data. Orange is this year, blue is last year. Unlike occupancy, average daily rates have been higher than last year for the entire year. July, the month we're going into, believe it or not, is pretty equal. So both at $500 for all reservations on the books as of a couple of days ago. March was a lot higher, so $198 in March of last year and $224 of this year. Rates kind of getting closer together through the summer and then diverging again through the fall. With September stays on the book so far, booked at $259 per night compared to $226 last year. The occupancy is slightly down, but rates are slightly up. So the way we can look at how those relate to each other is RevPar, which is on our next slide. So adjusted RevPar is the average amount of revenue made per night available. So this includes both booked and unbooked nights. We're seeing RevPar track really closely with last year. So the lower occupancy rates have been offset by the higher average nightly rates. With the exception of July so far, maybe not quite as strong this year as it was last year, and slightly lower than that last year going into the fall. But revenue is still really high, which is great because last year was such a big revenue year for so many people. The other couple of dynamics that have changed a lot over the last couple of years is the average booking window, the average time between a guest making their reservation and checking in. This year's booking window is a lot higher than last year. Last year, I think a lot of people were still waiting until closer to stay dates to make their reservations just in case things didn't work out. So especially this winter and spring, the booking window was a lot longer. In May, it was 63 days compared to 54 days last year, pretty much the same during the summer. People know they can't wait too long to make those summer trips during peak season, and then a lot lower than last year going into the fall and next winter as well. So for September stays, we're about 10 days further in advance than we were at this time last year. So make sure you're not counting on those last minute reservations because those booking windows are really returning to where they were pre-pandemic. People are booking their trips a little further in advance. And finally, we'll look at the average stay length. No big changes here. They're still right on track, about 5 days through kind of those peak travel months, January and February, when you have more of the snowbirds staying with you. Those tend to be longer stays. So I know there's been a lot of narrative about people staying in vacation rentals for months and months, choosing to work from somewhere different. That's not really what we're seeing. We're still seeing those classic like 5 to 7 day beach stays during the peak travel months. So that's a quick overview of everything we're seeing in the market. You can feel free to shoot me an email for more information, or our website is there as well. We have lots of great analytics about what's happening in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach.
That's awesome, Melanie. Thanks so much. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on how these specific market data points compare to the rest of the country. Can you speak to that real quickly?
Yeah, so rates are up, not quite as high in this area as they are. Most markets are up like 20, 25% over last year. Most markets are also seeing much lower occupancy than last year. So I think it's a good sign that people are managing their rentals well in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, that slight increases in rates help to kind of offset the slight decrease in demand, but rates are not so high that they're deterring people from continuing to travel. So it seems like the revenue management decisions in Gulf Shores are a little more on target than they are in a lot of especially the high-end leisure destinations around the country. So less of a shakeup in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, continuing to stay a lot stronger than some other markets around the rest of the country.
So maybe that means it's a really hot market still worth investing in, which kind of leads us into our next guest with Vacasa Real Estate. But again, thanks, Melanie, for all of that great insight. Welcome, Lauren Allen. So glad that you're here today. You're a principal broker with Vacasa Real Estate, and excited to hear all your insights about the local market.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Well, like you said, yes, it is still a very hot market. There has been a little bit slowing down since 2021. And I think a lot of that had to do with, in 2020, we had Sally hit. So that took most of our properties off the market. And then when they were all updated and had brand new everything, they hit the market slowly, and the demand was incredible. It was something that I've never seen in the 14 years of my career. They started because the demand was so high and the inventory was so low that it was a seller's market doesn't even describe the kind of market it was. It was phenomenal. But since then, we have had an increase in supply. And although I still consider it a seller's market right now, there are properties that are sitting on the market as far as from listing to close date a lot longer. I mean, in 2021, you'd be lucky. It'd go within hours of being listed. It'd be on the market. Literally, the MLS would say 0 days from active to pending. So yes, so it was very, very incredible to be witness to that, a part of that. But since then, a lot of properties that are newly, freshly updated have been coming on the market, and the demand as far as, getting 12 offers on one property isn't so much now, but it still is very much a seller's market. As far as investment properties go, yes, we are a condo community, I will say. You really have to have an agent when you're looking to find a real estate agent in this area that knows this is completely different than buying a regular home. What the ROI is, the return on their investment is, what cap rates are, what costs are they're going to incur that's going to be taken out of their gross rental revenue. So it's very important to understand when you're investing in a short-term rental that although it might look good as far as the price goes, you have to really deep dive into the cost of owning a short-term rental and if it is going to be a really good revenue producer. Condos are great. They're a great kind of homeowners that live, relatively far away, because everything's pretty much taken care of as far as maintenance goes, pest control. But then you have those association dues. So that's something to consider. As far as, do you want to invest in a very dense community where there's a high occupancy, like a high rise tower, or do you want to invest in more of a lower dense condos that I call them our beach cottage condos. They're like 2 or 3 stories, and they just literally look like a beach cottage. Depends. So you really have to deep dive when working with a client as far as them understanding the costs of owning a property in the short-term rental industry and what their bottom line is expected to be. Property taxes are a huge one. Alabama is the second lowest property taxes in North America. That's a big draw to this area versus, our neighboring Florida, which is a beautiful Gulf Coast as well. But what you pay in property taxes here, you're probably going to pay 3 times in Florida for that a type of property. So that's a big incentive for people to want to invest in Alabama. We're very small as far as geographic dense. There's only so much area to build on, but we are still seeing builders coming in and building these homes, 2-story homes, about 4 bedrooms, 3.5, maybe even 4 bath, single family homes, detached homes that are bringing in great revenue. They don't sit on the beach, so they're affordable as far as somebody who wants to get into an investment property but doesn't have $3.5 million to buy a house on the beach. This is more 800, 950,000, but it's right across the street from the beach, and it brings in, I would say, on average, at least a 10% annual gross rental revenue as far as the return goes. These properties have very, very low HOA dues, if any. They usually have a community pool. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the single detached home, you have a pool, they're small built subdivision. So there might be anywhere from 5 to 15 homes in there. So it's not a highly dense populated area. And it's right across the street from the beach, which is literally a stone throws from the water. And some of them have great views. So that's what I'm seeing a lot of as well. A lot of people are migrating towards those type homes, because then you don't have to worry about, with the low HOA dues, you don't have to worry about being assessed maintaining a high-rise condominium per se that has 420 units in it. But with that said, it is still a great market. I have buyers from all over the place wanting to know about more. I think we were a little bit of a hidden gem before COVID, and then once Alabama's beaches opened up, majority of the country's beaches were closed. So people found out about Gulf Shores and Orange Beach very quickly. And it seems to have just kept going and going, and it's miraculous, really. And builders are still building and developing, and it's a good time to be in the market. As far as the seller goes, buyers, interest rates are going up. That's a little bit of a concern, but honestly, the low interest rates that we saw before, those weren't norm. We got spoiled with those low interest rates. So they're still relatively low compared to history. So I don't think that should really deter anybody as far as maybe, exploring a little bit more into the short-term rental industry, especially if you're new at it. I think having, like I said, an agent that understands specifically investment properties and your rate of return is very important to be able to give a clear picture of what a certain property versus another property can do.
Wow. I mean, you're really enticing me to consider buying a short-term rental in Orange Beach, because it just sounds like a great opportunity. I had no idea that the property taxes were that much more favorable, and Florida tends to be such a hot market, but then there's this next door neighbor with this fantastic opportunity. Do you work with financing companies at all, or do you have some that you recommend? I know there's been kind of one or two in the industry in the past traditionally, but I just got back from a conference where there was a solid 25 new companies offering short-term rental loans with very favorable rates and parameters. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, because our industry and especially investment properties, as far as lenders go, that's a little bit of a higher risk than, your primary home. So I always suggest, we have a lot of great local lenders who this is what they do all the time. The majority of their business is investment properties or second home loans. You see a lot of just conventional loans down here, especially as far as the condo goes. A lot of companies down here do in-house underwriting, which is something to consider. I've had experience before where maybe I had a client that lived in, let's just say, Minnesota, and they wanted to buy, but they wanted to use a lender in Minnesota. But a lender in Minnesota it's a little bit more scary to them as far as lending on the Gulf Coast, because needless to say, the elephant in the room, we do have, hurricanes and tropical storms. But if there's a silver lining to that, that doesn't deter anybody, but we have days to prepare. Days. We know something's coming. It's not like, instantaneous. So my point is somebody, a lender who's not quite versed on how we handle situations like that, or the potential revenue a property could make, might be a little bit more hesitant to loan a property, fund a loan. So I always suggest speak to at least 3 or 4 lenders, whether it's a bank, whether it's your hometown lender, whether it's a local lender. Get an idea of really how they feel about loaning you, a mortgage on this property, because that's going to be a lot of your rental revenue is going to be, you want it to be able to pay the mortgage and make some. That's
sure,
the ultimate goal. So as far as
are you seeing?
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, are you seeing rates? I mean, some of the financing terms that I had heard of previously were 5% down, as an example, on a 30-year. Is that something you're still hearing of, or has it shifted?
Yes, there's a lot of local companies that I know that are doing in-house financing. So they're not selling it on the secondary mortgage market, or if it's not sold on the secondary mortgage market, they're fine with maintaining it. So a lot of in-house financing, because this industry down here, it is nothing but tourist industry. I mean, this whole Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, every local who has a job is in the tourist and visitor industry. And it's very much an important, tongue twisted, economic resource for our state. So it's very important that, the lending requirements have gotten obviously a lot more rigid over the past, 15 years or so. But with that said, working with somebody who might do in-house lending, they might be able to give you more options as far as 5% down. But there are a few companies here and there that, yes, I have heard of it. Majority of them are usually conventional 20-25% down. Interest rates around 5. I've seen them 5 to 5.6. I've even seen them as low as 4.5 right now. So it really just depends on it. We also have lenders that do portfolio loans. If it's somebody who has multiple properties, across the country or in this area, there's specific type of portfolio loans available. But I would definitely tell my client, give them a list of people that we have worked with before that we know finance in this type of market, to go sit down and talk to, not to commit, just talk to them, because this is a big decision. This is a large financial decision. And usually you see a lower interest rate with the more you put down, because the buyers has more at stake. So that's always best case scenario. But if you can't, and you really want to get into this industry as far as an investment property or second home, vacation home, then there are options out there for people that want to put less down. Maybe refinance 5 years down the road, once they've made a good rental revenue cushion, put a little bit more down. So there's all kinds of options. And my best suggestion would be is to explore them all.
Yeah, that's good advice. Definitely. Check with your local, check with somebody in your hometown if you don't live local. And like you said, go for it. If you're going to do construction, you get 3 bids. So same applies in your lending world as well. One of the things that I wanted to also share, I'm sure you're well versed in this too, Lauren, but the resources provided by Gulf Shores, the city of Gulf Shores, was very impressive. And I just did a quick screenshot here. Here's the website, also gulfshoresal.gov/780/rental license. They have everything on here from licensing instructions, how to file your taxes and where, how much, non-emergency phone numbers, what all the ordinances are. I've never seen it so easily laid out to find. So it's very short-term rental host friendly, I would say. And I was really encouraged to see that. So as far as permitting processes, it seems like it's fairly easy. They're still allowing plenty of permits for people that do want to invest and try the market as their first time short-term rental.
And they're really great to work with. I mean, if ever I have a question about where specific property lies, if it's close to the zoning as far as being able to be a short-term rental or not, I mean, I just pick up the phone and call them, and I know them by first name now. They're just great to work with. They're happy to help. You literally get a business license to be able to as long as you've applied, you can start renting. The business license is a nominal fee compared to what the potential is in owning a short-term rental. So and they're just great to work with, them and the city of Orange Beach as well. They want you to call and ask questions. They want you to be educated and understand how it works down here.
That's fantastic. It's great to have that, because with so many other regulation changes happening around the country, at least there's still some safe havens to invest and get involved.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. I think we're just about at time, so I just wanted to thank you both, Melanie and Lauren, for joining us today. All your wonderful insights and information. We really appreciate you. Here's all of our social links if you want to catch the recap, or again, feel free to join our community, members.astro.org. Again, free membership, or the premier host here gets you some fantastic discounts, all the educational courses. And check us out next month for our Roadshow stop. And thanks again for everybody being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks. Take care.